Liberate IT is an Oracle NetSuite solution provider that has been servicing Australian and New Zealand companies since 2011.
All right, well, thanks everyone for your time today. I'm going to take you through a little bit of the stuff about what we do, primarily payroll, which is built on the NetSuite platform. So as a business, we were started 10 years ago, and basically a bunch of ex-NetSuite employees and consultants who saw a gap in the market to develop a payroll product on NetSuite. So everything that we do is 100% built on the NetSuite platform, the same way that you would customize NetSuite to fit your business needs. We use that same technology to create a payroll product and some of our other products that I'll show you today. So our payroll is 100% on the platform, as I said. We now have more than 600 customers that use us. We manage 3 jurisdictions from a compliance perspective: New Zealand, Australia, and the UK. And we do all those updates to your account seamlessly and make sure we manage things like integrations to the tax agencies and all other different compliance things as well. Okay, well, that's enough about us. I think I'll jump into the actual demo and show you the product. So what you can see here is I have logged into NetSuite. I have logged in with one of our roles, the Payroll Administrator Unlock role. Like any NetSuite role, what you're going to see is a dashboard. So I will have things like reports to show me those things, that quick reminders to those things that I need as a payroll administrator to be able to easily access the data I need in order to do my job, like with any NetSuite dashboard. So things like unprocessed payroll time by employees, time records that may require approval, maybe some pending commissions that are coming in from an external source to be processed in payroll, leave request pending approval. Those types of things should all be available and at hand to me so that I can actually run and do my job. You can see I've got a payroll scorecard here. So I can drill into that payroll data using NetSuite scorecard technology. I can look at information on a monthly, quarterly basis, do a side-by-side comparison quite easily. And there's nothing all that clever that we're doing here. That's one of the benefits that you get with having the payroll product in NetSuite. All the NetSuite analytics can be run across your payroll data. Just a few other things that I would like to show you at this point. You can see basically an expanded menu, just so you get an idea of what is in the product. So we've got things like links to your accounts. When we say an employee's net pay goes to a particular GL code, we are pointing directly at the NetSuite GL. There's no need for replication of any of those dimensions within your account. We interface with all of those things. We've got wizards to help you set up the preferences for your company and your different legal entities if you have more than one, as the same as with leave management as well. And we also have a whole heap of reports. So reports around leave liability with on costs, all those types of things, tax reports, specific New Zealand reports, which are obviously required for reporting to the IRD, including all the payday filing type information is all here. Super reports or KiwiSaver reports, pay reports, including variance reports as well. And the other thing I just really want to highlight here is when we have these reports, and we give you a good range of them, I think, you're able to customize these. So because it's built on NetSuite again, you get that flexibility of NetSuite report and save search functionality to run across your payroll related data. Okay, so that's just a real quick overview about how we sit in NetSuite. What I'm going to do now is actually have a look at the employee record and how that is configured. So if we look at a New Zealand employee here, you can see all this top information that you're seeing, the person's contact details, the department, class, location, and all that. That's all part of standard NetSuite. When our payroll module is installed and you have the appropriate permissions, you're going to see these additional tabs on the employee. And just a point to note here, obviously security is very important with payroll data. So we have permissions on our payroll fields, on all our payroll records, and payroll fields down to the field level using NetSuite roles and permissions So that makes sure that things are kept secure. So on the payroll tab, what you're going to see is things like what's the employee's employment status, are they full-time, part-time, casual, how are you going to pay them, wages or salary. When you say that they are being paid by wages, you can also say pay from NetSuite time. What that means if you're using NetSuite timesheets as well, we will look at those timesheets, so for your casuals or whoever, or maybe potentially from an external time and attendance system, and pay them based on those timesheets. You've got your pay frequency. We've got a leave request working week, which allows you to set up a working pattern for your employees. And now that's going to drive when people request leave, the hours that they request leave over a period of time. So for instance, if someone works 4 hours on a Wednesday and doesn't work on a Friday, that will be factored into the availability to request for the employee as well. Down here, we've got some other posting stuff. So we've got some posting information. This is where the employee's net pay is going to go to. Again, as I mentioned before, that's pointing directly to your NetSuite GL. From here, the super or KiwiSaver expense. And then we have a payroll expense allocation, which basically allows you as an organization to group sets of employees and have their different pay types go to different GL codes. So if you've got employees at head office, their standard pay and their leave can go to a different GL codes to maybe an employees in a different location or in a different department. On the tax info, you're just going to see, the employee's IRD number and an employee tax scale. On the superannuation tab, you're going to see the relevant KiwiSaver information, what their KiwiSaver employee super contribution is, the ESCT rate, and other KiwiSaver information like opt-in, opt-outs, and so on. On the leave information tab, you're going to see information about their leave entitlements in terms of leave, their balances, and what's available. We're also going to show you the earnings for accrual, which is a key thing in New Zealand payroll in terms of the when they're terminated. That will be what the 8% is paid out of, as well as also the different calculations that we've done around annual leave and annual leave rates. And there is a record which tracks all that information in terms of people's annual leave over the 52 weeks and also the 4 weeks for ordinary pay, so you can reconcile those payments for annual leave. On top of that as well, we have a full leave history here, so you can see all the history of everything that's been accrued for that employee over time. And as these are date stamped, that also means you can do date effective reporting on those types of things as well. The final tab here is the bank payment details, and that's where you're basically going to see one primary bank account and potentially multiple secondary bank accounts with a fixed amount that you can pay your employees as part of the payroll process. Okay, so that's most of it on the actual setup of the body of an employee. If we look at another key record here, that's the employee pay component. So if I look at the payroll tab, well, that's just frozen for me for a second. Hold on, I'll just refresh my screen. So if I look at the payroll tab, we have pay components here, and these are all those things that you pay or deduct from an employee. So you can see I'm looking at a current view, but like anything in NetSuite, I can change the way I'm viewing that data, and I can see some of the historical pay components this employee's had, which have been end dated. When it comes time to creating new ones, I have these different buttons along the bottom, which can be used to create different types. So if I click on one, let's say salary and wages, this is then going to get me to choose a type. And if I look at as an example here, an employee who's paid a bonus. Now this employee is paid on a monthly frequency. I can specify that this is a quarterly bonus, flag it as being variable. I have a quantity, rate, and amount that I can enter for this. Now I can enter that amount here, or I could enter that to be 0, and I could potentially flag this as a next pay date. And what the system will do, based on the fact that it's variable and it's on a different frequency, is it will then prompt me as part of the payroll process to actually enter an amount or confirm an amount that I have set. On the pay components, you'll have a start date and an end date. Anything with a start date in the future won't come in, or an end date in the past won't come into payroll. You'll also notice that there is some classifications being defaulted onto here in terms of the P&L account and those types of things, which you can change, as well as the department class location, and then that's then going to flow down into the journals, the NetSuite journals that we create as part of the payroll process at a later point. So that's an example of a pay component where it contributes to the employee's gross pay and also as an expense to the business. If we look at a deduction, it's the same record, but there's some slightly different options. So on a deduction, let's say if we choose a donation, you've got some other options like selecting it's a percentage, choosing the percentage type that you want it to be, and there are different types than those ones here, but these are the ones that have been made available to this type. You can then enter a percentage amount. You have a payee, and when you look at this payee, it looks directly at your NetSuite supplier list or vendor list. And then what that means is when this is posted as part of payroll, depending on who I choose, that can then flow through into an accounts payable process. We do also have configuration which allows you to pay these vendors as part of the EFT file that we generate as part of payroll processing as well. Start and end date's the same. And then the other additional option that you've got on a deduction type pay component is a range amount. So let's say maybe you've given an employee an advance of salary or some other thing that you need to deduct over a period of time at lesser amounts. You can enter the range amount. The system will deduct the amount that you've set or the percentage that you've set up until the point that has reached, and then it will end date and maybe prorata the last payment for that pay component. Okay, so that's pretty much it on the employee setup. What I'm going to do now is actually jump out and have a look at how employees access the system themselves before I actually take you through the actual payroll process. So this is our employee portal, which we call MyPay. So this is where an employee can log in. They're able to edit their personal details. They're able to do enter time and allowances and do leave management. So you can see as this employee, I've come in, I've got some leave that's pending approval at the top here. I can see my leave overview and balances here too. And I have a team calendar where I can see, depending on where I am in the employee hierarchy, the different people and what leave that they may be on. I also have a pay overview on my dashboard. And from here, I can hover over my last pay, download those pay slips too. On the right-hand side as well, I can also see some additional information about upcoming leave that that is relevant for my team. So as well as be able to go here and do bulk approval of leave, I can directly approve this leave from the dashboard based on those ones that are there just by clicking on them. I could drill into that and see more information as well. And we also send out emails for those leave approvals, which allow you to actually approve the leave approver to approve from those emails as well. If I want to request leave, I can click on the appropriate button for leave for my employee, and then I'll come in here and I'll see a calendar where I can select first of all my start date and then put my end date that I want to do it. The system is now calculating the required hours. That's based on my working pattern and also factors any public holidays that may be in play. And those public holidays are by province as well. So if I'm in Auckland versus Canterbury, it's going to factor in the relevant anniversary days for those ones in terms of the required hours, and it will calculate the available hours for me as well, and that's based on the balance that the employee has. It will include any future accrual. So if I'm requesting leave, in January, it will also factor in any future accrual and also any other leave requests that maybe that are approved and haven't been processed prior to this point in time as well. You can also set up for things like sick leave requirements for uploading medical certificates from here too. So that's requesting leave. If I then look at one of the other elements, which is my personal details, so I can see information around my personal details here. A number of these are not able to be edited, but some are, and this is configurable by the administrator. I can edit my payslip email, my phone number, and this account, change my address details, and I can also potentially edit or change my bank account details for payroll as well. I've got options here to see my full list of payslips too, and I can download those PDFs from here too. We also have allowances, so that allows you to actually, depending on how you've configured and what allowances you've made available to your employees, for people to say, okay, I've been on call, enter a quantity for that on call, specify a date, submit that then for approval. Once that's approved, that allowance then can flow through into the payroll process and be paid as part of payroll too. And another feature we have here is time entry. And we also have a configuration option which allows some time interpretation. So you can set up rules for your employees where you say, okay, if an employee works more than 8 hours on a Tuesday, the remaining of that time gets paid at time and a half. Maybe they work on a weekend, all of the time gets paid in time and a half as well. This is synchronizing to NetSuite and getting the project tasks and the task assignments for this employee. So I can just, at the simplest level, just enter my hours per day into this area here. We do also support start and end times for this as well, if you want your employees to start and end times. And then as I enter this time, this is automatically being synchronized down into NetSuite as NetSuite time records against those records. If I just toggle this and look at how this has been interpreted, I can see that I've now got normal time and overtime for different elements of that time based on the award and how that was configured for those employees. Okay, so that's the My Pay portal. I'm now going to go back into NetSuite and take you through the actual payroll process itself. So in terms of starting a pay run, I come to the menu, I do start new pay run. Now I'm in a multiple entity account here. So I'm going to choose the subsidiary that I actually want to run this pay for. The system knows when I last paid, so it kind of defaults my last pay date. I can change that pay date though to another pay period. It's just giving me a warning that there's another pay run, but it's not restricting you from doing that. There are also no restrictions in terms of when you run pays. If you want to multitask and you've got multiple pay runs, you can have multiple windows open. You can have other people doing the pay runs as well, and those types of things. So when I select my pay period and thing, I'm going to see the employees that fit within that. I can unmark all or mark all and deselect employees as well. I've got options here to change the type. So let's say I've already paid these employees in the month and maybe I'm just doing a bonus run for them or a back pay run. I can create this as an adjustment. I can say, okay, we've accrued leave, so we don't want to accrue leave in this instance. I can say use period data, which is now going to look at the full period and tax and calculate KiwiSaver and other things on that basis. And I can also say skip pay components, which will mean that their standard pay and standard maybe deductions that have already happened on the previous pay will not come into the system. Things like that are calculated on a percentage basis obviously will, and I can terminate employees from within this pay run as well. But in this example, I'm just going to kick off a standard pay run here. So we have a series of steps. Oh, I need to set this pay date. We have a series of steps that you actually move through when you're creating a pay. You can also have an auto pay option, so you can kind of do a set and forget. It's especially you know, from this to the approval stage, which is a lot of smaller companies kind of do that because they don't have so many variations. But typically we find most people do move through these stages I'm going to show you now. So first stage is to initiate, then we move to the enter time stage. And this is now going to pull in any NetSuite timesheets, leave, and those types of things. and show me that now. So I'll be able to see that information here. I also can come in and make some ad hoc stuff as well. So if I did want to enter some overtime or those types of things as well, enter the hours, I can make those adjustments directly from this screen too. Once I've done that, I then submit this page and then move on to the next stage in the payroll process, which is what we call our variable stage. So the variable stage, which we're seeing here, that's where you've set up a pay component against an employee, and you've said that you want this to be variable. You've pre-populated some information, and then you can either confirm or enter additional data for that at this point in time. You can see I can also enter things like customers and projects against that, and enter a memo for those particular ones as well. Now this is the process stage, and from here I can actually do the calculations as well, and you can see in this bar along the top where I am at in terms of the steps that I'm performing. You've got some boxes here where you can enter some ad hoc stuff very quickly too. If you wanted to enter some more detail, then you've got another enter one-off option here, and that's now going to give you another screen where you can come in, select an employee, select any of the pay types, which may include a deduction for that employee too. So if we just choose a bonus, I can select that here, enter my bonus amount. I've got a P&L account that I can change. I can change my paid for period. So let's say this is a bonus that has been, it's an annual bonus. I can set that as annual, and then the system will calculate the tax appropriately too. Again, I can enter a customer project and associate with that, and I can change the department, class, and location, which is going to flow down into the journals too. If this was a deduction, I could enter a payee in a balance sheet for that too. So once we've done all these preliminary steps, reviewing the time, doing our variables, doing the ad hoc type stuff, I can now go ahead and process. One other point to add is actually, if you do have ad hoc stuff, you don't need to do it in the payroll process. You can actually do those things directly against the payroll, against the employee prior to payroll processing, or actually import some of those ad hoc things prior to payroll processing as well. But once that has been calculated, we then move on to the approval stage. And this is going to show us a quick summary of the information. So I'm going to see some information around what the person's net pay variances, tax deductions, and some other summary information is going to show for me here. Typically, people will also run some variance reports as well here to maybe get some deeper granularity around how things are done. So even though we've got a calculated pay slip, I can still actually make some adjustments. So if I come in here, and what I'm looking at now is actually the pay slip that's been calculated, so I can see all the different lines associated with this pay. You'll notice here that there's some balance sheet account and P&L account and some payees. These are things that are going to be summarized and go into the journal as well. I could still actually manually add details here, or if I noticed something was wrong, like that bonus that I entered before was incorrect, I can come in here and actually say, well, okay, that was a much bigger bonus for this person. That was actually 5,000. I can now do a recalculate all, and that's just going to recalculate the details purely for this payslip for that employee. But once I've done all those things and I'm now ready to finalize the pay, what I'm going to do is select my bank account that I want to pay that out of. I can also override some of the pay dates and posting dates and those types of things. I'm going to enter a reference note, raise pages for June, and then I'm going to finalize. So when I come here and submit this, the system is going to do basically post pay and report this for you in one go, and it's going to do, I guess, a series of steps basically. So first of all, it's going to generate you a EFT file that you can upload to the bank. It's going to generate a posting transaction for all the liabilities associated with what's on the pay and the employee's net pay and the expenses associated with that. It's then going to generate a payment transaction for that net pay coming out of the bank account that you've selected, and also generate all the different leave accruals for the employees as well. And you'll notice here that we have a report that you can download, which is going to do your payday reporting. So just looking at a finalized pay run here, just you can see that this is all completed. You can see we've got a PDF here, which is all the employees' pay slips. So this is the actual PDF print of those things. So it's going to show us the different things that they've been paid, quantity, rates, amounts, and year-to-dates associated with all those payments. Also showing payments into the bank accounts as well. This one's got a multiple split bank account, so that's all on the PDF. These PDFs are customizable, so you can show, hide different information, or add your own logo and different things like that on those PDFs too. I've got my EFT file that I can download here. I've got my posting transaction based on all that information. So I'll have a quick look at that. That's a standard NetSuite journal here. And then obviously there's a full history of everything that's happened. One of the benefits of being in NetSuite is you get all that auditability. So whenever a field changes around net pay or those types of things, that's all shown. So coming back to our payroll journal, you can see the journal that's been generated, and that's a summarization of all the different expense accounts, department class locations associated with that. There's your debits and there's your credits. Okay, so that's pretty much the payroll process and what I wanted to show there. One of the other areas that I wanted to talk to you about is another product that we have, which is what we call the journal generator. And what that allows you to do is basically take a NetSuite report, map that report to a posting definition, and then use that data to automate the creation of one or many journals. So as an example, if I just go to our post journal option, when I do this, I will choose from a different mapping that is being set up. So if I look at something which is like payroll percentage allocations. So the use case that we've got here, and this is the payroll use case, is that you have employees where you want to split or allocate their payroll data by a percentage to different department class locations. So in order to do that, we have a definition, and associated with that definition, there is a save search. So I'm sure most of you are familiar with NetSuite save searches. It's one of the most powerful things in NetSuite, in my opinion. So you can see here, I've got a search where I'm showing employee department class location. I'm showing a reallocation amount, a reallocation department, and I'm also showing the department class location, which is being set on the payslip detail, which is the pay line that's being made. If I look at this, I'll also see the search itself. I can see that I've got a formula here, which is basically looking at another record, which is a record which holds that percentage and is associated with the employee. And then it's multiplying those percentages in order to give me the reallocation amount. So once I have that, that will then allow me to map that in a mapping object, where I can basically say things like, where is my debits, and don't worry too much about these things in here, but where are my debits and credits coming from? Where's my department class location coming from? How am I calculating the credit amount or the debit amount? You can specify, you can hard code those things as well if you want a fixed GL code for it to go to. And we do also support custom fields and custom segments and all those types of things in terms of mapping those things for your journals. The other thing that this also does, if I just change it to a different definition, it also allows you to chain multiple definitions together. So you'll see now I've got multiple journals here now. So I can see one, there's my New Zealand allocation. I've got another one, which is my Australian allocation for a different subsidiary. And then I've got another one, which is a project allocation and is doing some allocations against the projects based on time. And when I go ahead and create that, it's just going to create standard NetSuite journals. Okay, so that was most of actually what I wanted to showcase or discuss with you today. So that's me done in terms of the original presentation, and probably ready to review some questions if we have any.
Okay, fantastic. We do. I have to say I loved your demo company, Anton. That was very on trend. I would imagine that your payroll in that company would reduce drastically each month.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Depending on what battle was. That was great. I think that's the most attention that I've certainly paid to a demo account there. So thank you so much. Right. So we do have quite a few questions. So just firstly on a sort of I guess a sort of structure setup point, how does the pricing for this app work? Is it monthly or annual? Yeah, can you sort of just give us a little bit of an overview on sort of how that would work once somebody wants to use that cloud?
Yeah, so our pricing model is quite simple. So there is a price per employee per month. The base price for that is $10 per employee per month, but that does discount. We do have set volume discounts depending on your number of employees. That will discount as your employees go up as well. That is paid annually. That is the only fee that we charge. That includes unlimited support within that as well, and obviously maintenance of all those statutory stuff that we do for you. And we do have 3 updates that we do per year. Obviously statutory ones, and then also ones where we're enhancing the product based on customer requests.
Okay, fantastic. So just got a question here too. This is somebody asking if they can confirm, or if you can confirm. Early in the demo, there was a link to accounts payable. Does that mean a subcontractor or subcontractors can have access to the timesheet to enter time against a project, and the time will automatically be credited to their vendor record? Are you able just to explain a wee bit more around that?
Yeah, so I mean, we're not dealing with paying with vendors. I mean, I think that what you're talking about, vendors and time, that's kind of a standard NetSuite feature. What we use, I guess, in terms of the time feature, it's the time that's set on employee records within NetSuite. So, I mean, potentially you could set up vendors as employees and have them do it that way if you give them access. I guess that's an option, but yeah, we're not really looking at, from a payroll perspective, really typically looking at vendors. Okay,
great, thank you. And if employees leave and then return, are we better to create a whole, sorry.
So I will just make a qualifier on that. There is a common thing within New Zealand where you do actually have vendors who are contractors, and they need to be reported to the IRD. You need to withhold tax for them. We do support that reporting element within our payday filing. It does require the use of NetSuite's withholding tax module to do that, and we do have a number of customers that use that method. So where you are actually using NetSuite standard vendors, paying them via AP, but then we report on them to the IRD.
Right, okay, fantastic. So I'll just go back to that other question. So if employees leave and then return, are we better to create a whole new record for them, or can we just change their status? Will their history affect anything?
Typically, it is better to create a new employee if they have left, because yes, some of their, especially when you're looking at how annual leave rates and those types of things are calculated, that history will still be there for those employees. So the system would look back at some of that historical data. So yeah, our standard recommendation is to create a new employee. If you want to track them, then you can create a custom field which links the two together.
Okay, thank you. Great. So a few more questions here. Is there an option to set alternate approvers in case the original approvers are on leave? Great question there.
Yes, so we have a standard thing within payroll where the system can look to see if the employee is on leave and automatically escalate it or assign the leave approver to be the next person in the hierarchy. Alternatively, I mean, this is one of the benefits of us payroll product being within NetSuite. If you have more complicated leave rules, you can workflow our records. So you can workflow the leave request and do other kind of things associated with that. And we do also allow people to act as delegates in terms of approval. So you could have someone on a horizontal who works with the person, and they could potentially be assigned as a delegate to approve on behalf of someone else within the system as well.
Okay, brilliant. Is there a mobile app for MyPay?
There isn't a mobile app, but MyPay is designed to be mobile friendly. So when you go into a mobile, all those things will actually automatically scale to mobile. So for instance, if I show you here, and I'm just gonna, this will give you an idea. So that's automatically scaling that to an iPhone X or to an iPad. So yeah, so it's designed to work well with mobile without requiring an app.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks, Anton. Right, so I've got quite a few questions here as well. So firstly, do employees need a license for both NetSuite and Infinite Cloud?
No, they do not. So I guess from a access perspective, I showed you the MyPay portal. That's our own portal, so that doesn't require a NetSuite license. If you have employees who already have like an employee center license, as an example, they can also get that same functionality via the employee center. It does look a little bit different, but no, it's not required for payroll.
Okay, cool. So, okay, brilliant. So while we're on that, so what is there help desk support available for payroll staff to contact with any processing questions or issues?
Absolutely. So we do all our support via email, which we find is most efficient versus a phone number. And support is one of our primary focuses. Obviously, payroll is time critical, so that is constantly monitored. And I think that's one of our strong areas in terms of how we respond to support. We do also have a knowledge base, an online knowledge base, where you can pick up information, about doing leave requests, importing data, those types of things as well.
Okay, fab. So this is another support question, and I guess you've sort of almost answered it really. So you're talking about the knowledge, the knowledge bank plus all support online. But the question is actually sort of where is support based? Obviously, if everything's online, it's not sort of so much an issue. But is there, sometimes people just do need to talk to a person.
Yep.
Is that still possible? Yeah.
Yep. So support is based in New Zealand and Australia. So and if you are right, there are times when you do actually need to talk to a person, and in those cases, we'll do a go-to or a webinar so that we can actually see what's happening directly with the person and work through those things.
Okay, fantastic. Now I think this looks like the last question at the moment. So just before I give you that question, if there are any questions, anyone, please just do get them through now. But the last one is, are you able, please, to run through the process and the capabilities of importing setup data for employees when you're in transition? So from MYOB, etc.
Yep. Yeah, okay. So, first of all, I guess MYOB is probably the most common product that we replace, funnily enough. Yes, so we have a set of templates that we use to import the employee records and also historical data. In New Zealand, you need a bit more history because you need to have the 52 weeks for the annual leave calculations. So we've got templates for all those, the CSV templates, but our process typically is to get you to extract the data that you have. We don't get you to pre-populate those templates. Obviously we know that we're familiar with converting data into those templates, so we work with you to get your data extracted from your system, and then we manipulate that data and import it using NetSuite CSV import tool, which hopefully you're aware of, which is very powerful and quite simple to use, and that's how we do it.
Okay. Fabulous. So I've got quite a few more questions that have come in now as well. Is the system able to be configured so that at certain times time entered is recognised as overtime? So something between time entered between 10 o'clock and 5 a.m. for example.
Yes. So that is something that we are doing within our MyPay application. So yes, it's a matter of clearly defining those time interpretation rules that you have, and it could be based on start and end times. It could be a period in the day. It could be based on the number of hours worked in a day, or it could also be based on the number of hours worked over a week. So yes, we can do those things. Those things are not user configurable, so it does require effort from our side to do that. And we can also do things in that as well, where you actually specify, okay, this person's worked on a Saturday, so they're entitled, or they've worked after 6 on a Tuesday, so they're entitled to a meal allowance, or they're entitled to an allowance. So we are able to interpret that time, from normal time to overtime, and also generate allowances as well.
Okay, so I think this next question actually sort of rolls on from there. Does it have an award interpretation feature?
Yeah, so award interpretation, I guess I don't know how common that term is in New Zealand, but it's a very common term in Australia. So yes, that's in essence what I'm talking about. We don't interpret agreements per se. What we need to do, if you look at the Australian example, that some of these are 200 pages long, what we need to understand is how people are using those things, and then we would go in and configure the system to do those calculations for you. So that's something that we can work with people to do.
Cool. Wonderful. Fantastic. So now just got some questions here around setting up. So are you just able to just sort of quickly run through the implementation process? Sort of how long does that take to set up? What sort of support, sort of do you have for a company's team if they're going to set up? Yeah, if you can take us through that, that would be fabulous.
Yep, sure. So I guess in terms of implementation, the length of time really does, it's kind of that it takes kind of depends on a couple of factors. One of those is the number of employees that you're importing and that you need to bring across. The other one is, I guess the complete, how many people that you need to train as well. Those are kind of some of the key things that help us work out the number of hours that we need to do for implementation. And obviously we've done hundreds of implementations, so we are quite good at it. Typically, a go live or an implementation process will take 2 to 3 months in duration, and that goes through the process of gathering the data. Data migration is a large part of that. In the initial phases, when we kind of kick off, we will kind of take a sample of employees and kind of do like a mini test run and verification with you to give you some confidence in the system and show you how the system is calculating, prior to then doing full data migration and parallel runs, and then going live. We do have a full breakdown of all the steps, and so when we do kind of quote implementations, we can give you a breakdown of where the hours that we're quoting are spent as well.
Wonderful. Okay, questions keep on rolling in, which is fantastic. Everyone's paying attention. Is there any difference in the per employee pricing if you were a labour hire entity? So if the per employee fee just charged on the number of active employees in the pay run in the month? For example, does it ignore past employees?
Yes, yeah. So the way that we license, so let's say you're licensed for 100 employees. We're going to do a check when you do a pay run to make sure that you're within your license boundaries. We will also typically give you a buffer. So, let's say you're licensed for 100, we'll kind of might license you up to 103, but if you go above 103, there would be a restriction that would come into place. If that's a kind of a temporary thing, we're very flexible on this. We can increase your limit, within minutes for you, so you can continue, and then we can work out, is this going to be an ongoing thing? And then we can prorata, or we can do a wash up at renewal and those types of things. So we're quite flexible around how that works. But yes, it is based on the unique employees that you've paid in a month is what you're licensed for. So employees that you've paid previously or terminated, they're not factored into it.
Okay, lovely, thank you. So the final question for now is, does the MyPay application provide a dashboard view for managers? Are there any reports for leave patterns, example, sort of sick leave taken on particular days, Mondays and Fridays, things like that?
Yeah, so the dashboard is, the dashboard of MyPay is kind of how I showed it to you before, where you're basically, you're seeing your overview plus your team calendar, and those types of things. So there isn't a manager, as a manager, I will be able to see information about my employees. There isn't a manager dashboard per se at this point. A lot of those types of manager things are actually seen and done within NetSuite. But this is a product that we are continuing to develop. So, one of the things that we're interested in is what customers want to see in it too.
Okay, fantastic. So sort of giving that feedback, what's the best way for people to continue, sort of users to continue to feedback to you? Is there a particular sort of email that can be used, or just via support?
Well, it depends. If you're an existing customer with us, then we've got, via the support email and the usual the contact ways, or otherwise come via Liberate if you want to engage with us directly and understand a little bit more about the product.
We hope this video gave you the information you were after. If you have any further questions, get in touch with us using the links in the description. At Liberate IT, we can provide free consulting to understand your business system requirements, understand your company growth plans, and provide free NetSuite demonstrations. For more information, visit our website.